"Can I take your order, sir?" I asked the patron. Notepad in one hand, pen in the other, held steady. The creature looks me over. One of his eyes remains fixed on the menu before him. The other rolls with a wet squelch, rotating independently and hungrily, giving me the once-over. I'm used to it. Such is the duty of a human that works in a restaurant that serves primarily human flesh. The man licks his lips with a dark tongue, though of course he isn't a man, not really. Settled into a seat amongst peers and like-minded creatures, he can afford to relax a little. The colors of his suit start to fade, and it becomes disturbingly clear that he isn't wearing a suit at all. He has simply altered the colors and shades of his own crustily scaled skin, like a chameleon. His eyes have begun to bulge from their sockets, yellowing as they grow, pupils expanding and contracting. He grins, revealing the multiple layers of gray-green teeth behind his cracked lips, and a slippery black tongue, easily the length of my forearm, burst from his mouth and licks the side of his face with a disgusting and grotesque lack of shame. He is like many of the others, the ones I refer to privately as the cannibals. Though I suppose they technically aren't cannibals in the literal sense, as a cannibal is a human that eats another human, and these guys aren't human. If they ever were, they're certainly not anymore. But the patrons aren't even the worst part. As I said, I'm used to it. What I'm not used to, what I am yet to become comfortable with, even after a year of employment, and what I doubt I'll ever get used to, is the smell. The smell, you see, it's just, well, it's delicious. It's absolutely divine. Warm and steamy, like roasted pork. It makes one salivate. It only took a week or two of working here to turn myself into a fully fledged vegetarian. But I still have to ensure that I come to work with a full stomach before my shifts, or it will, without fail, start to rumble. The air just smells so good, and it sickens me. I am deeply disturbed by how tasty the smell of freshly cooked human flesh really is. I hate it, but there is nothing I can do. I've tried and tried to get out of my contract, but there is simply no way out. 12 months ago, I fell victim to a series of unlikely and unfortunate events. Events that saw me bound to this terrible restaurant, bound by the contract. I am forced to uphold it utterly and totally, and the owner refuses to release me. And even if she did, what then? Would she carve me up and serve me to the guests? I like to think that she wouldn't. I would hope that she really does see me as a colleague of sorts, and that we could part ways good-naturedly. That she would allow me to just leave. But I'm not so sure. And that frightens me. The uncertainty. I hope you don't think that I'm a monster, by the way, for referring to the freaks that run this sickening place as colleagues. But I've learned a few things in life. You gotta look out for number one, because no one else will. As much as this restaurant horrifies and disgusts me, I have to look after my own best interests, and that includes keeping my colleagues on side, keeping my head down, and doing my bloody work. I come in when the rota demands, and one day my contract will end, and I hopefully will be let free. And if not, well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Get a move on, Godfrey, warbles his female companion from across the table with a little belch. I'm starving here. She groans and I shoot her a glance at her stomach, distended and still shaded pale pink from her dress, visibly rumbles and shakes. One of the male's eyes had been fixed on me this entire time, but his second now joins it, flicking up to stare at me and only me. I do not flinch, and I try to keep my grimace subtle as I politely await his order. What would you recommend, waiter? the thing asked me, his tongue lolling from side to side as he does so. I smile pleasantly, though it does not reach my eyes. The steak is very good, sir, though they do tend to go a little heavy on the juices. I would suggest asking for only a light drizzle. Splendid, he mutters, his lips peeling back to reveal all 4 layers of broken teeth. I'll have that then, please. Rare. And for you, madam, I ask, turning to his companion. Try not to look at the monster on the table behind her, tearing into his meal like a rabid dog. Blood and spittle flying like thick rain and spraying out over the tablecloth. She grunts and scratches her chin with a 4-fingered hand. One eye reads the menu as her other rolls, giddily staring around the room. It leaks a little with pus, and her tongue shoots out to lick it clean, before retracting messily behind her teeth. I clench my jaw. I'll have the blade loin, and a side of ribs. I write down her order. These small ribs, please, she mutters, her lips crackling and peeling back into a grin. Certainly, madam, I reply, stone-faced. I'll get these orders to the chefs and I'll bring it all out as soon as it's ready. I hope you enjoy your evening. I turn and head to the kitchen. I can feel their eyes bore hungrily into my back as I take my leave. Would these freaks try to eat me if it weren't for the owner? Try to tear me limb from limb between the tables? I'm sure that a great many of them probably would. It's an unsettling feeling, to say the least, but the owners keep the patrons in line. I'm not sure if it's so much of a humanitarian solidarity, but rather more like a practical, employee maintenance initiative. They do struggle for staff here. I stake my way through the maze of tables, avoiding the greedy, roaming eyes of the guests and pretending that I don't feel and or care about their skin-crawling little caresses as I pass them by. I don't know if they think that they're being subtle, or if they simply don't care, but it disgusts me. I can bring issues to the owner and she'll probably kick the offender out right then and there, provided they aren't too high profile. But it happens so much that it's not worth mentioning. What's the point? Just keep your head down, don't cause a fuss, and do your work. The ripe and heavy smells of cooking flesh redouble as I push through the doors into the kitchen. I feel the sweat start to pinprick across my skin at once. One of the waitresses passes me by and back out through the doors, carrying 2 plates of steaming pink-red meat in her hands. She shoots me a glance with all 3 of her amber-tinted eyes, but doesn't smile. They're civil to me, the other waiters and waitresses. Civil, but not kind. I don't really give a crap, to be honest. I have no interest in being their friend. No need to become too prominent on anyone's radar. Just as long as they respect me enough to not cause or seek out any issues. These chefs, however, are outright hostile. Order up, I say in a loud but dispassionate voice, holding out the order slip. The nearest chef reaches around the counter and snatches it in a gnarled hand, grunting and squinting and leaking from his pores as he reads through. I can't frickin' read a word of this. Weren't you never taught to write, boy? Blade loin, a side of small ribs, and a steak. Rare, light drizzle. Light drizzle, the chef barks, looking up at me, pupils narrowing rapidly. He slams the severed, bloody arm he's holding down under the counter with a splat and leans across to look at me. I suppress a gag. You've been making these crap suggestions to the customers again, meatbag. The drizzle's the best part. I'm just telling you what they ordered, Bert. I reply levelly, holding his gaze. And you know what? He's got good taste. There is always too much drizzle. You prick, Bert shouts at me, but stuffs the order into the slot and grabs the arm, muttering and swearing to himself and the others as he turns back to the stoves. The best tactic when it comes to these chefs is to just not take anything, I found. My talkback might irritate them, but weakness is worse. They despise it. The kid's right, you know, Bert. comes a gruff voice from the other side of the kitchen. A taller chef, round-bellied and gray-scaled, bald and jowled. You risk ruining another good dish with your obsession with that frickin' sauce. Oh, shut it, Grummy, Bert replies. Just 'cause you're older, don't make you any wiser, you dummy. Grummy snorts with laughter as he flips the contents of his pan. It looks like a series of dried and crusted human ears, but I can't be sure. He winks at me and points to the bloodied plate on the side. That one's ready to go out, John. Table 12. Right, cheers, Grummy. I grab the plate, wincing with the heat but holding it steady nonetheless. Try not to focus too carefully on the actual food, reading the note instead for details of the meal's contents. Grum is the only one in the kitchen who's actually decent to me. I'm not sure why. The cynic in me half believes that he's trying to groom me, biding his time for the perfect opportunity to cut me down and carve me up. But then again, perhaps not. I vouched for him once at an important juncture when one of the other chefs kept screwing up the orders. Back in my first month of employment, I was witness to a great deal of kitchen chaos and inter-staff fighting. The head chef at the time was losing his wits and pinning all the blame for his messed up orders on Grummy, and everyone believed him. Too wrapped up in their own stuff to see what was going on for themselves. They just put their misguided faith in the authority. But I saw. I always see. I see things that others don't, even with those roaming eyes of theirs. And so I vouched for him, for Grummy. I tried to keep it on the down low and only told the owner. But one thing led to the next and the head chef was quickly fired. Grummy won back his respect and he recently earned the title of head chef himself. Information, regardless of its source, has a tendency to leak through the cracks and trickle down. And Grummy became much nicer to me after that. I suspect that he found out where his support came from, one way or another. I carried the order out to table 12. Waiter, calls a woman from one of the tables to my left. I shoot her a glance as I pass her by. Her jaw protrudes out to the sides at awkward angles and cracks as she speaks. Red goo leaks from her lips. We need some extra sides over here. I'll be right with you, madam. Apologies. Yes, I think to myself. My apologies for doing my job, you disgusting creature. I approach table 12. A man with fly-like eyes and a mouth bordered by scorpion fangs rubs all four of his hands together excitedly. The mashed liver, sir. I announce as I place the plate down in front of him. Is there anything else I can? But before I'm able to finish, the man has shoved his face into the food. I pull back as he gnaws and tears at it with feverish desperation, spraying the contents across the table and up and over my uniform. It splatters up to my chest. I am beset by a powerful waft of the food and my complexion pales. The man turns to me. His eyes quiver and a low buzzing rumbles in his throat. He stops eating, grunting as he does so, staring right at me, poised and tensed. And I find myself suddenly very afraid. I want to take a step back. I want to run the heck away. But I am overcome with a terror that, to do so, risks shattering the thin ice upon which this moment rests. My gut tells me that something is wrong. Something is about to happen. Images of the monster lunging right at me, springing from his chair and burying his fangs into my throat and tearing it open like wet tissue paper, race like fire through my head. Is this it? Is this how it ends? No build-up, no ceremony. Just one rabid customer too many. One customer who couldn't control his urges, despite the power of the threats laid down by the owner, the clear warnings on the signs. Is this it? There's a tray on a nearby table, one in the process of being cleared away. Maybe I should grab the tray, use it as a kind of makeshift shield. But the moment passes. The tension breaks. I stumble back in alarm. Instead of attacking me, however, the creature doubles over. He stands, clutching at his neck. He screeches. a noise which is quickly cut off by a gurgling and a spluttering in his throat. I stare at him for a second or two in confusion. Some of the other nearby patrons have turned to look as well. The man's distress grows. He grabs me by the collar, and then releases me almost instantly. He slams his many fists down against the table. He knocks over his chair and stumbles into the next table over. Everyone is looking now, staring at the commotion. And I realize, is he choking? After another second or two, I think that perhaps he is. What would you do in this situation, I wonder? I weigh my options. Everyone's gaze is focused on the creature, but it'll become apparent quite quickly who the closest employee was at the time of the incident. It's possible that there are staff eyes on me right now. Don't make a big deal of it, John, but do what needs to be done. Right. I quickly step behind the monstrous man. I grab a hold of the cuff of his shirt to stop him from flailing, though it becomes immediately clear that I have grabbed nothing but a roll of scaled flesh, and start slamming the heel of my hand in between his shoulder blades. "What the devil are you doing?" shouts a man from the next table. "Saving his life, sir," I reply back through grunts, as I bring my hand down hard for the 5th time. Still, the creature chokes, his chest rising and falling rapidly as he wheezes. Very well, here goes nothing, I think to myself as I step forward and reach both arms around him. Time to find out if the Heimlich maneuver works on these things. I ball up one of my fists against the place that I presume his solar plexus to be, and I bring the palm of my other hand down and onto it, hard with the force of a punch. And a chunk of red-purple meat flies from the creature's mouth. I actually see it soar through the air and splatter against a bottle of wine a few tables down. The man staggers and wheezes, filling his lungs with great bouts of air. It's difficult to gauge expression on that monstrous face of his, but he turns to me, and if I had to hazard a guess, I would say that he looked rather bewildered, to be frank. You saved me," he sputters, but I just lead him back to his seat, ignoring the round of applause that now rolls across the restaurant floor. A bizarre situation indeed. I just make sure that he is alright and still reeling from the palpitations caused by my first suspicion. Make a hasty escape to the storeroom as professionally as I can, avoiding eye contact with all as I do so. I wonder as I walk whether or not I had acted correctly, whether my moves were wise, whether the creature was worth saving. You didn't do it for him. You did it for you. It was easier to do something than to do nothing. But even now, even after saving one of their own, I still feel their hungry glances. I still shiver at their clammy touches, this time under the guise of congratulations. I still see them lick their lips and sweat as I pass them by. I despise them. "John." I have rounded the corner and left the main lobby of the restaurant. The storeroom sits at the end of the corridor, and at the opposite end is the room that Helia uses as her office. That's her name, the owner, Helia. I look up at the sound of her voice. "I saw what you did there, John. Don't think I didn't see." For some reason, the first emotion that passes through me is fear, but I try to force it down. Why should I be afraid? I didn't do anything wrong, did I? It's fascinating how even the mere tone of an authority figure can make you doubt yourself. "Yes," I reply as coolly as possible, doing my best to maintain a neutral expression. "Yes," she repeats, chuckling, her chin's wobbling as she does so. "You saved our customer's life. You're a hero." "I work in a restaurant that serves my fellow man up on a platter. I'm not a hero, I'm a traitor." "Thanks," I reply. "Here, take these, and go fetch me another leg from the freezer and then get yourself home." My heart leaves. Could it be? She wouldn't, would she? Is she going to release me from my contract? Take the rest of the day off. You've earned it. We can manage here for tonight, she says. My pulse slows back down. The rest of the day. Right, of course. I nod. Thank you, Helia. And I reach out a hand to catch the keys as she tosses them to me. And then she turns and retreats back into her office. I look down at my hand. The keys. She's never trusted me with the keys before. Could this be some kind of test? These will allow me access to the freezers. I've never been down there. It's usually one of these chefs that go down, or on a rare occasion, one of the other waiters or waitresses. But never me. Never the human. I never settled on a reason as to why. And to be honest, I never really cared. I was grateful for not having to travel down to the freezers, the place the meat is held and kept cool and fresh. Grateful for the privilege of keeping the rooms out of sight and out of mind. But now it seems I am going to go down after all, and the meaning behind her request suddenly registers. Go fetch me another leg from the freezer. Another leg. My stomach turns at the thought. Seeing the food is one thing, the fleeting glimpses of these chefs' preparation techniques is another, but to actually locate and carry the parts up to the kitchen myself. Does she see this as a reward, as an increase of responsibility, or is this some kind of sick joke? I don't know how these things work, I really don't, but I want to get out of here and go home, if only for the night. Do your job, John, and keep your colleagues on side, and go home. And so I grit my teeth. I steel my stomach and I head off through the corridors, through the locked door at the back of the restaurant and down the stairs into the bluish, frosty gloom, my breath clouding by my mouth. I shiver as I descend, down into the dark. I step heavily onto the floor and start to stroll through the length of this new corridor. A leg. The kitchen needs a leg. I push through the nearest door and come to a sudden stop, and I realize that I shouldn't have come down here. I should have refused her offer. I should have taken the keys back to her office. I should have passed the buck to somebody else. All of these thoughts and more flood to the forefront as I stare in horror at the pieces of humans that are hooked and packaged around the room. Arms, legs, chunks of unidentifiable flesh, a torso hooked and stripped of limbs. A bucket of hands sits on the ground to my immediate right. And in the corner are a pile of heads. I don't need to look directly at them. I can tell. I can see. I can see their wide and staring eyes, lifeless and empty. I stagger back and out of the room, stumbling and tripping down to the ground with a loud thud. Jesus Christ, I shout. Screw this terrible place. I sit myself up against the wall, running my hands through my hair as the sweat freezes against my back, collecting my breath. I'll go back up. I'll pass the keys to another employee. Tell them that Helia herself had requested that they retrieve the leg, because I'm sure as heck not doing it. I'm not spending another unnecessary second in this nightmare basement. I may be bound to employment, but Helia can't force me to come down here. She can't. She can't. My thoughts are interrupted by a voice, soft and weak, from a little further down the corridor. Hello? I turn and stare, heart pounding once again. Hello? It comes for a second time. It's high-pitched. It sounds like the voice of a little girl. Please, she whimpers. Is anyone there? Oh God. There's someone down here. Someone else. Someone alive. I scramble to my feet and stare down the corridor to the source of the voice. My breath steams in the cold and blue-tinged air. It could just be a prank, John. A fellow employee playing a sick joke. Or something worse. A test. A trap. I shoot a glance behind, back to the stairs that lead up and out into the restaurant. Remember, John, you've got to look out for number one. Self-preservation is key. Don't put yourself at risk. My primary thought process is interrupted by another. What? You're not even going to look. You can afford to take a look, John. There's time. Go and see. I shiver and run a hand through my hair. I could go and look. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I creep down the corridor and deeper into the gloom, passing by more heavy doors, some with circular little glass windows built into them. I don't look directly through, but in the corner of my eye, I see more than enough of the twisted and sickening horrors that lie beyond. The stuck and hooked slabs of meat, hanging limbs, and worse. Ugh. I round a corner at the corridor's far end. It turns off at a right angle and goes on for another couple of meters, and then comes to an abrupt stop. There are a few more doors around there, all sealed tight. I stay still for a moment, head cocked, heart pounding, and listen. A part of me, a cowardly part, hopes that I don't hear anything else, that there is nothing to be done here. I can just head back up to the restaurant, relatively guilt-free, and go the hell home. But that is not what happens. Please, comes the voice, weaker this time, but quite clear enough, even muffled behind the door as it is. I step closer and try to look through the circular pane, but the glass has frosted, and I see nothing but blurry shapes and the room beyond. I try the handle, locked tight. A ticking hand in my watch seems disproportionately loud. I lean back around the corner and I shoot another glance up to the stairs. This goes against every instinct of self-preservation I have, but I can't help it. I'm only human. I start cycling through the keys in the ring, trying each one in the icy lock. The first one fails, as does the second. Footsteps creak above me as someone makes their way across the ground floor. Key number 3. Let's try it. My hand shakes as I bring it to the lock, fumbling as I try to fit the key inside, succeeding. I successfully turn it around in an arc. The door rocks with a loud clunk, and I grab the handle, hauling it open. An icy cloud billows out and I curse as it washes over my exposed skin. It takes a second to disperse, and when it does, I see her. She can't be more than 7 or 8, knees drawn up to her chest, arms wrapped tight around her shoulders. She sits there, shivering violently in the corner of the room. Lines have been drawn in marker at various intervals across her body, around her arms, her sides, her legs. She stares up at me with wide and frightened eyes, and I stare back. To her right, all across these shelves are carved up pieces of a human body, encased in tight, translucent plastic wrapping, scarlet stained. We remain fixed in place for a moment, her and I. "Get out, John," screams the voice inside my head. "She's the only living thing down here. She's being saved for a special occasion, and they will notice if she is missing. Leave her here." I reach behind my back and untie the deep red canvas apron that forms the key piece of my uniform. I crouch down and I wrap it around her. At the slightest gesture of concern, she breaks and rushes forward, clinging tight to my arm and shuddering, crying silent tears that stream down her face. "They'll replace her with you. How can you possibly think you can save her, John?" My sense of rationality screams at me as I hurriedly lead her down the corridor and back towards the stairs. "What can you possibly do? There's no way you can get her out of here unscathed. There is just no way. You have to look out for number 1. This will be your undoing." "It's okay," I mutter to the girl. "It's okay. I'm going to get you out, you hear me? I'm going to get you out of here. But you have to do exactly as I say, okay? No response. I stop halfway up the stairs and squat down, grabbing her tight by the shoulders and looking into her eyes. Okay. She nods quickly, tears still flowing in silent rivers. Right, okay. We can do this. We can do this. I take a deep breath as I grab a hold of the freezer door's heavy handle. The walnut will return us into the back of the restaurant. Locked. No. Oh no. Crap! I blurt out, releasing the girl's hand and using both to pull on the handle. She clings instead to my leg. No, 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 no. So it was a trap then. It was a trap all along. This is it. This is the end. Unless it's just the cold, I think out loud. Is it frozen? I shoot the girl a glance and she doesn't reply. I grunt and grip tightly on the handle, veins bulging in my forearms as I pull it down. And with a crack and a little burst of frost, the door swings open. Relief floods through me. It'll be short-lived, but for now, it's most welcome. I peer out and I look both ways. Empty. I encourage the girl to follow and she does so. I lock the freezer door tight behind us and I think through my admittedly limited options as quickly as I can. There are two ways out of this place. The fire exit at the back, and the main doors at the front. None of the windows will open wide enough to get her out. The fire exit might be alarmed, and to get to it, you have to pass through the kitchen. I swallow. Main entrance it is. I look down at the girl. She looks back up at me as she fumbles with the straps of the apron, wrapped it tightly around herself. She's so small. Could I hide her in something? I rack my brains. There are boxes in the storeroom that are used for carting off trash. She'd probably fit in one of those. But they'll notice she's missing. They'll know it was you, John. Unless... Right, follow me, come on, trust me. Everything's going to be okay. My voice shakes as I speak. I imagine that she can hear the fear, but she follows nonetheless. We dart back through the corridors and the sounds and smells of the main restaurant grow stronger and closer. The final stretch of corridor is a short one, and once we enter into it, we will be caught in a direct line sight with many of the closest tables. I peer around the edge. To the left, at the far end, I see patrons held in the thralls of their meals, grunting and stuffing their faces with the kitchen's finest works, distending their jaws and growling, perhaps unconsciously, as they tear the chunks of steamy flesh right off the bone. Ahead and just off to the right is the door to the men's bathroom. Stay here, I whisper to the girl. She looks like she's about to panic. I'll be right back, just give me a few seconds, I promise. She anxiously releases her grip, and with one more glance, I stroll as nonchalantly as I can across the corridor and push through the door to the bathroom. A quick look around confirms that it is empty, and I return at once to the girl. I take her hand. Stay on this side of me, keep pace, don't make a sound, okay? She nods. I glance once again around the corner. No one is noticed and no one is coming. Spittle and saliva flies from the cracked and peeled lips of the closest patron, but she isn't looking this way. She's sitting at an angle. I steel myself. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, now. We stride as one across the corridor. She has to walk a little quicker to keep up, and I hear her ragged breaths alongside me. To my ears, they sound dangerously loud. I reach out for the bathroom door, eyes ahead, and I push through. I breathe. I take her to the cubicle furthest from the door and I draw her inside. You need to stay here, okay? Hide up in here on the toilet. Keep your feet up and stay totally silent. I will come back for you, I promise. I won't be long. Just don't move, okay? She looks scared at the prospect of being left here alone. She shakes her head. I bring my face closer to hers. I hiss with greater desperation now. They are going to hurt you. You know this, don't you? Unless I can get you out of here, they're going to hurt you a lot. So please, please, stay here, stay silent, and I'll be back. I promise. The girl says nothing, but tentatively she releases her grip and huddles herself up on top of the toilet. I'll be back. Lock the door, okay? Don't open it for anyone but me. And with that, I depart. I hurry back to the bathroom door, pausing to ensure that the girl does as I asked. I see her feet below the stall door. I hear the lock click, and I see her feet disappear again. She'll be okay. I return into the restaurant, pulse racing. All right, John, next steps. You're committed now. Don't screw this up. I stride down the edge of the restaurant, trying to keep in the shadows but still unavoidably catching the attention of the more shameless of the customers. I see them drag those disgusting gray-black tongues across their blood-stained mouth. I see their rolling eyes following my movements. I feel their vile and sticky caresses against my elbows as I push into one of these side rooms. The higher-class diners tend to eat in here. It's less noisy. I see one of my fellow employees, the waitress from earlier. All three eyes are fixed on a customer as she takes his order. I bide my time, waiting. And when she's done, I alter my course and intercept her before she can return to the kitchen. Garen, hey. She looks up at me. I take her scaled wrist in my hand and push the keys into them before she has a chance to question me or refuse. She grimaces. One eye looks down at her hand and the other two remain fixed on me. I don't think that we've ever made intentional physical contact before. Her skin around the arms is rough and it's not quite scaled, but still harder than it should be. Why are your hands so cold? She asks. Humans are warm-blooded, aren't they not? I pause. Just been outside. A smoke break. Since when do you smoke? Just started. It's stressful working here, for obvious reasons. Why are you giving me these, John? She asks. Mahalia wants you down in the freezer. The kitchen needs an arm. Why don't you go down? I shrug. I'm human, ain't I? I've never been down there before. I don't know where anything is. She rolls all three of her eyes. Fine, take this to the kitchen for me then. She pauses. And where's your apron? I take the order slip from her free hand. My shift's over for the day. I'm on my way home, thanks. I turn and stride away before she can ask me any more questions. I realized that my fist had been clenched against the side of my leg and stretched my fingers, encouraging the blood flow. Back through the restaurant, the tension is palpable. I feel it like a tangible field, one that could shatter at any moment. Stay calm, John. Stay calm. I push past the doors and into the uncomfortable warmth of the kitchen. Order up, I say above the sizzle of the cookers and hold the slip across the counter. Bert reaches out and snatches it with an angry mutter. Freaking meatbag. I can't read a single word of this stuff. I'm already backing away, returning to the doors. Bert, I didn't even write that one. I don't know what it says. He stared at me incredulously, snarling. He bares his row of gray-green teeth and spits onto the counter. You what, boy? What are you doing swapping orders for? You trying to make my life as difficult as possible, you dumb sack of flesh. Some of the other chefs have glanced over. They paused their jobs, knives and other such fearsome apparatus in their hands. The general bustle of the kitchen slows somewhat. I swallow. An unpleasant experience with my death-dry throat. I step back up to the counter. Look, just hand it over to me and let me see. Big mistake, he barks, shoving the now crumpled and sweat-stained note back into my hand. To the guy's credit, it is actually rather difficult to read. It's, they want the steak, medium rare, with the leg daubless on the side. Me grunts as he snatches the note back and stuffs it into the order slot. The others have returned to their duties. The bustle resumes, and I get the heck out. I'm just hoping and praying that I don't bump into Helia. My movements will be far harder to explain to her, and I can't leave the girl in the bathroom. She needs me. I head right across the restaurant, abandoning the shadowy edge for the more direct but less comfortable route through the tables to the corridor that will lead me to the storeroom. "Waiter," someone calls. "Waiter." I ignore them. For all they know, I have other duties to attend to. In a sense, I do. In the stockroom, I grab myself a new apron and hastily slip it over my neck and fasten it around my waist. I root through the piles of cardboard and pick up a large cardboard box still in one piece, and one that I'm hoping will be strong enough to hold the weight of the girl inside without collapsing. It was a smart enough plan in my head, but now that I'm looking at it, can I really carry the girl in this box? What if she's just too heavy and breaks out through the bottom? I run my hands through my hair and look around the storeroom. There's nothing else in here that will be any use to me. I don't have much of a choice. The box it is. I grab the thing and empty it of the papers that are strewn about inside, carrying it back through the storeroom door. I can avoid going through the main restaurant now, and instead head through the accompanied side corridor in my return to the bathroom. I pass by these series of disturbing pictures to which I had become accustomed to over my many long months in employment. A framed portrait of a disgusting monster, less humanoid than most. It could well be an old relative of Helia's. His eyes appear to follow my movements. An oil canvas painting, one that depicts a barren field beneath the blood red of an evening sky. A pile of corpses sits rotting in the background, ever so slightly out of immediate focus. A blown-up black and white photograph of a similar restaurant's opening. At least, I've assumed it to be a different restaurant. It must be. The building is exactly the same, but I don't recognize the surrounding location. I join back up to the hallway with the bathrooms. I appreciate that I made it sound like there are a labyrinth of winding corridors and halls that adjoin this restaurant, but honestly, there aren't actually a great deal. The freezer was larger than I had expected it to be, admittedly, but it has the luxury of having an entire floor to itself. If I meet anyone coming the opposite way down one of these corridors, then I'll have to hold the box above my head to allow them to pass, something that I doubt I'll be able to do even if I have the girl inside. I use my foot to push through into the men's bathroom. I come to a stop and suck some air in through my teeth as I do so. All three stalls are occupied. A man with cracked horns and bulging, shadowed sacks beneath his eyes raps irritably on the door of the furthest stall, the one that hides the girl. "Hello, is anyone in there?" he grunts, crouching slightly to try and peer beneath the door. "Sir," I stammer, trying to keep my voice as level as I can. "That one's out of order, I'm afraid. You might just have to wait for one of the others to open up." He eyes me greedily, sucking a long strand of saliva back into his mouth. He mutters, but says no more and moves away, waiting by the second of the doors instead. There is an uncomfortable silence as we both stand still in the bathroom, not that far apart, waiting. And then the toilet flushes and another of the cannibals pushes out from his stall. The man with the horns take his place, shutting the door behind him as its former occupant washes up and pushes past it out into the restaurant. Not before a quick snuff of my immediate air as he passes me by, however. I shiver in disgust and quietly step to the furthest stall. I kneel down and poke my head beneath the door, meeting the gaze of the little girl, huddled and shaking and white with terror. "Let me in," I mouth, and after a beat, she does so, tentatively stepping onto the ground and reaching for the lock as I pull back, pushing through the door and quickly shutting it closed again behind me. "You're going to have to get into the box," I whisper, setting it on the ground. There's not a great deal of space in here, so I shuffle to the side, back pressed up against the cubicle's wall. She stares at it, and then back at me, and I see for a moment the plan through her eyes. Yes, I know it's kind of stupid. This goes against every instinct I have. Well, not quite every instinct. My sense of humanity shines bright, but the others, the ones that have thus far kept me alive, are resentful and angry. I know, I whisper, but please, I need you to get out of here before they realize you're missing. So please, just get in. She stares at me. I can see the gears turning in her head. Her eyes are red and raw, but she has stopped crying, and she clambers carefully into the box. Stay quiet, don't move. I'll get you out. I close the lid. I stretch my back. I turn behind me and unlock the door in preparation. Then, when I think the bathroom is clear, I squat down and grab the box, tilting it upwards, sliding both my hands beneath. Christ. The girl, of course, isn't very heavy, but the size and shape of the box means that a disproportionate amount of weight is being supported by my forearms. I grunt with the strain as I rise to a stand, adjusting the positions of my arms as best I can. I use my feet to open the door and stride back through the bathroom, pushing into the corridor and returning the way that I came, through the hallway in the back. A risk, to be sure, if I bump into anyone coming the opposite way, but safer than taking it through the actual main lobby of the restaurant. I won't be able to avoid it entirely, however. The corridor leads past the storeroom and back into the main room. A little closer to the entrance, definitely, but still a fair distance away. Go, just go for it. Look ahead and get to the doors. And my heart pounds as I walk, awkwardly and at an angle so as to see around the box, but speedy enough, I hope. Muscle straining, step by step. Hey! Oh God, don't panic. I'm making my way down the edge of the restaurant, down the side around the far table. A little further ahead and that's it. The entrance doors. The escape. Hey waiter! I see movement in the corner of my eye. A patron has risen to their feet at their table. I shoot over a glance and see that it is the man from before, with the scorpion fangs, the fly-like glitterball eyes, and the 4 arms. The one that I had saved from choking. He waves at me, using one of his hands to wipe the gore from his mouth, flicking the residue down onto the tablecloth and over his empty plate. A part of me just wants to run, to make a break for it. It's not like anyone would stop me. But is the box sturdy enough, or would the girl fall through? And regardless, my behavior would be noticed and noted. And I'm on thin ice as it is. But irregular behavior plus a missing girl equals guilty. And I don't know what would happen to me if I'm judged as such. Game over, I guess. That's the guy that saved me. Get this man a raise, the patron calls, looking over his shoulder as he moves past his fellow customers and ambles towards me. I follow his gaze. He's looking right at Helia, stood with her arms folded at a nearby table. No. I lower the box at once, driving it to the floor a little rougher than I would have liked, but eager to get it out of Helia's direct line of sight. It thuds to the ground between my legs and the closest table. One of the creatures sat at it peers over the side to look at the box with curiosity, her nostrils flared. The scorpion man reaches me and wraps 2 of his arms around my shoulder. He laughs, a terrible, guttural sound with the smell of his meal hot in his breath. One of his feet kicks carelessly up against the box, but he pays it no mind. Another round of applause starts to roll around the restaurant floor as all the patrons look my way once again. Helia is making her way over. My heart hammers in my chest. I glance feverishly down to the box. Don't move. I will its occupant. Please, please, don't draw any attention. This was the waiter that I was telling you about. The man chortles to Helia as she approaches our position. He deserves a reward or something, is all I'm saying. Yes, Helia replies, her chin's wobbling. Quite right, sir, quite right. I was actually witness to the incident myself. She's just under 2 meters away now, making her way around the table towards us. "What are you still doing here, John?" she asks. "I thought you would have made your way home by now." The applause dies down, and the customers turn back to their tables. The thick, sticky stench of the atmosphere weighs heavily down upon us all. The conversation and the munching and grinding of meals continues across the restaurant floor. But still, she approaches. I can't speak. I can't think. There is no moisture in my mouth, and my tongue sticks to its roof. She comes to a stop by the box. The Scorpion Man has written something on a note and stuffed it into my front pocket, with a heavy pat on the back. A contact number, perhaps. A tip, or his name, I have no idea. I don't really care. I don't listen as he shares some final words with Helia. I don't watch him as he departs. I stare instead at my boss as she regards the box with curiosity. "What have you got there, John?" she asks, as time slows right down. I fumble for words. I was just trash. I was just finishing up. Thought I would take the trash with me on my way out. I swallow, and Helia bends down to open the box's lid. I stare in horror as Helia pulls open the cardboard lid of the box, to reveal nothing. The box is empty. One of these sides has become partially disconnected from the whole, and a strip of the deep red carpet is visible from the inside. My eyes dart to the tablecloth beside it. It reaches down almost to the floor, and it rustles. I step to the side at once, drawing Helia's gaze away. "This is just an empty box," she asks, looking up at me. Yeah, exactly. It's just taking up space in the storeroom, so I thought I would get rid of it." "No, we can use this, take it back. And then seriously, get yourself home, okay? You've earned it." I forced a half smile. "Right. And do you have that limb I asked for, by the way? And the keys to the freezer?" "Oh, no. I bumped into a Garen on the way there, and she knows the layout better than me, where everything is and such, so she offered to go down instead. Thought that she might as well. She said she would take it straight to the kitchen." There is a tense pause. One of our patrons laughs at something on the opposite side of the restaurant. The sound is low and wet. Helia shrugs. "All right." She points at the box as she turns to take her leave, and I nod in response. And we're in the clear. For now. I allow myself a breath and then squat down to pick it up. "I'll be back for you," I mutter when my face is beside the tablecloth. "Stay here." And I dutifully carry the box back to the storeroom, already racking my brain for a new plan as I do so. My back is slick with sweat and my shirt sticks uncomfortably to my shoulders. I try not to think about either of the table's occupants kicking suddenly out and striking the cowering girl that hides below. What the hell has gotten into you, John? You'll be lucky if you ever make it out of here alive, let alone with the girl too. I could just leave. I could just walk out and hope that she has the wits to make her own escape. I could choose to forget all about her. I couldn't yet. I can't. I run my hands through my hair. The game is still in play. I need an excuse to stay. I take one of the empty trays from the nearest shelf and return into the restaurant. I really need a glass of water or something. I'm starting to feel lightheaded as hell. The couple at the table that hides the girl are, thankfully, nearly finished. I head over, hanging back until the second that the woman has pushed the final chunk of red-brown meat into her mouth. Her tongue slithers out and licks her finger clean, along with her wrist and the lower half of her forearm. "You finished up?" I ask, hastily clearing away the items on the table before I can get a response. "Yes," warbles the man, rubbing his belly. The colors of his suit fade steadily in and out across his semi-scaled skin. "Delightful feast." He hungrily drinks me in as he speaks. "Anything else I can get for you?" I ask as required, silently praying for a no. "No," the man says, looking at his companion. I think we're done here. That'll be all. Right, I reply. I realize that I may have been a little hasty with my cleanup, and I slow down significantly, pausing, waiting, hovering by the table to see if the disgusting creatures are going to get up and leave. But instead, they decide to enter into a conversation. Table items and empty plates in hand, and hovering suspiciously as I am, I have no real choice but to return the items to the kitchen. I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing now. Maybe I could hide perhaps, or insist that I want to stay. Help the girl get away when the restaurant is less busy. She's so close to the exit. For now though, if the cannibals currently sitting at her table would kindly get out, that would be a good start. I push through into the kitchen, and I'm hit by the wave of sticky warmth. A large chunk of unidentifiable meat rotates slowly over the grill, sizzling and dripping heavy globules of grease as it turns. And there stands Garen, the waitress, holding a plastic, shrink-wrapped arm, arguing with Bert the chef. "What the heck is this? We need a leg, not a bloody arm, you idiot." He bellows over the counter and into her face. Crap, that's right, the kitchen needed a leg. What did I ask Garen to retrieve from the freezer? Did I ask her to get a leg or an arm? Crap, I definitely asked her to get an arm. There's a joke in there somewhere. My mind races. You idiot, John. You've messed this whole operation right up, haven't you? What are you going to do now? I stand there in the doorway like a moron, tray in hand. The two engaged in the argument have not yet noticed my presence. "Look," says the waitress, her three eyes narrowed in defiance. "I'm just following orders. John said, since when did you take orders from that meatbag?" You know, there's really no need for you to swear so much, Bert. You're not impressing anyone. For heck's sake, he roars. If you want something done, you gotta... The veins in the chef's arm bulge as he grinds his teeth, tearing off his apron and striding around the counter, snatching the keys in the plastic-wrapped severed arm from Garen's hand as he does so. I step quickly to the side and avoid his gaze as he shoves past me, muttering angrily under his breath. I put the tray on the side, ready to be sorted and cleaned, and Garen makes eye contact with me. She throws out her arms in exasperation. "What the heck, John?" she says. She looked pretty upset. I wince and mouth a sorry to her. She shakes her head, but to my great relief, says nothing further. "Don't mind, Bert," says Grummy, putting a heavy hand on the waitress's shoulder. "Actually, Grummy, there was one other thing, down in the freezer." She glances around and then pauses, as if unsure as to whether it's wise to share her information, but she beckons him closer. She mutters something into his ear, and that all too familiar fear makes a swift and unwelcome return to my gut. Oh God, did she see? Did she notice the missing girl already? Did you even remember to relock the room that you found her in, John? I'm not so sure if I did. Grummy's eyes meet mine, and I feel the color drain from my face. It's almost like I can see the cogs and gears turning in his head. There's a long and strained pause. The sounds of clattering pots and pans reverberate through the pillars of steam all around. The chef straightens. "John," he calls from across the kitchen. Another pause. "Yes, Grummy," I reply. He nods to a dish at the end of the counter. "Helia might have dismissed you, but this is my kitchen. Take this order out, and then you're done for the evening. Table 20. Blood rushes in my ears as I step closer, heart hammering, avoiding his gaze as I take the plate in hand, along with the order slip. Table 20. But Grummy, this says, "Table 20, John." Grummy growls, and I nod, carrying it out and into the restaurant without another word. Table 20 it is. I've never been good under pressure, As you probably noticed, this isn't the way that I do things. I do what I'm told as neutrally and as dispassionately, but not disrespectfully as possible. Staying boring, keeping under the radar. It's worked fantastically so far. And today, well, today might as well have screwed all that up. Save the girl. You have to save the girl. You told her to stay put under the table and she trusts you. You can't abandon her, you won't. You have to save the girl. I try not to think about what my shift is going to be like tomorrow. If I even make it to tomorrow, that is. I can't bear it. What's the best case scenario for you here, John? The girl gets away, you get home safely, and what? No one notices she's even missing. It's never mentioned. I snake my way through the restaurant to table 20. It doesn't take long. It's right at the back of the room, by the same wall that holds the kitchen doors. I do my best to hold off the wave of impending panic. Of course they'll notice she's missing. They'll absolutely notice. It looks like they already have noticed. But no one knows you were down there. Garen will get the blame. She's the one that went down. Grummy suspects though, doesn't he, John? You saw it in his eyes. He's got his suspicions already. Are suspicions enough? Is that all that it'll take? Would Grummy sell you out? He's your mate. Well, sort of. Barely. He's a monster. You saved his job, his reputation. You're a human. He cooks your kind and serves them up on a plate every single day. I feel sick. Coming to a stop at table 20, I lower the plates down in front of the patrons. About time. You expect faster service in a place like this. The closest grumbles, saliva dripping from the corners of her mouth and onto her chest. Her companion snorts and edges forward in their seat. One bulging eye fixes on me. The other swings wildly around and down to the meal before her. And 2 portions of cut shoulder, one with hock trimmings. I hope you enjoy. I stand up straight and turn to leave, but the creature to my immediate left grabs a hold of my arm. Not just a caress or a subtle grope, but a grab. I freeze and stare at her, immediately tensed. Waiter boy, this is not what we ordered. I hear a series of little squelches as all their eyes turn from their meals and fix themselves onto me. Her jaw quivers. The other patron snarls with frustration. And I'm sure you know we paid a great deal to guarantee our place here tonight. And I have so far been less than impressed with the quality of service. Of course, madam, my apologies. If you could just let go of my arm. She digs her fingers in tighter. I would like to speak with the owner, please. Helia. Madam, I'm afraid that's just not possible. It's rather busy tonight, but I can go and speak with the kitchen to find out what's happened. Have they even started preparing our meals? The other whines, moaning as she rubs a scaled hand across her belly. I'm not sure. It could just be a simple mix-up. If you could just let go of my arm and I can speak with the kitchen. No, if you won't get the owner, then I want to speak with the chef. Bring him out here. As I said, it's a busy one tonight, but I can definitely go and ask him. Bring the chef to me now. Madam, I steel myself and clench my jaw. Gathering my courage, I stare right into her face, expression cold. Release my arm. There is a strained pause, but to my relief, she does as I say, and reluctantly releases her grip, leaving a pale and painful mark in my skin. I'll do what I can, I tell her, picking the plates back up in shaking hands and returning to the kitchen, arm throbbing as I do so. The universe is against me tonight, it would seem. I mull over the shattered remains of my plan. I think I'm going to just tell the girl to make a run for it. I'll act surprised when I see her and claim ignorance. If she's fast, she should be able to make it out of the front door in time. Maybe I can help her move from table to table to get a little closer and improve her chances. It's not a great plan, admittedly, but I'm running out of options. I just want her out of the restaurant. I can't breathe here. My thought process is broken by the sight of Bert back in the kitchen. He's holding the leg, as requested, and muttering to Grummy. I can't hear what he's saying from here over the clamor, but his gestures are wild. He runs a hand over his bulbous head. The creature looks panicked. Honestly, I have to stop myself from releasing a bitter and self-deprecating sudden laugh. The plan, I feel, could not be going much worse. If Bert has already noticed the missing girl as well, then I really have no choice. I have to get her out of here now before they conduct a search. Grummy puts a hand out and stops Bert mid-sentence. He looks at me and nods down at the full plates of food that I carry in my hands. "What's the issue, John?" he grunts. "They claim that this isn't what they ordered, Grummy." I put the plates of steamy meat back on the counter. "They want to talk to you, but I told them that since it was busy, you probably wouldn't." "No," he says to my surprise. "It's fine, I'll go talk to them." Bert starts spluttering, but Grummy simply puts down his knife and points the chef back to the cookers. "Keep things running for me, Bert. I'll be back." The creature seems irritated to have had his concerns put on hold, but also rather pleased to have been granted this temporary authority. He mutters to himself but returns to work, grunting orders to the other chefs. Grummy puts a heavy hand on my shoulder as we walk back into the main lobby. I wonder if he can feel the layers of sweat that have permeated through the material. "Get back to work for now, John. I'll handle this. Stay sharp." Stay sharp? What the hell is that supposed to mean? Is that a threat? I murmur in response and allow myself a breath as he releases me. He heads off to the right to the problem table, and I turn left to make my return to the one that hides the girl. The occupying patrons are standing up, thank God, pushing their chairs underneath and heading for the door. "Thank you," the female says, and the male nods at me. They loop their arms as they walk the length of the carpet to the entrance, and their eyes squelch as they retract into their heads. I watch as their skin hardens and shifts through a wheel of colors, their camouflage clothing returning, rolls of flesh shivering and creasing to give the impression of folds in the fabric. The female pulls on a pair of gloves and her gnarled, four-fingered hands are hidden from view. They push on out through the doors and then the doors behind and into the evening cold, and a little gust of cool wind is blown into the restaurant as they do so. Just another couple out to dinner, I think to myself, and the moment passes. I reach for the tip that they have left in the center of the table, and accidentally fumble the coins, dropping them to the floor. I quickly glance around and then crouch to the ground to pick them back up, muttering through the tablecloth as I do so. "They've gone," I whisper, "and we're going to get you out of here, okay?" I lift up the corner of the tablecloth and see the girl huddled tight between the chairs, staring back at me, wide-eyed and shivering. "On my signal, you run, okay?" I lift the tablecloth a little higher. "You see the entrance?" She nods. "On my signal, you make a break for it. Run for the doors as fast as you can and don't stop. Get as far from here as you can, you understand?" She nods again. "Okay, all right." I lower the tablecloth again and stand up straight, taking a step back, heart pounding like crazy. Everything seems to slow right down. I take in all the general murmur and chortling of the cannibals all around, the deep red decor of the restaurant walls and floor, the chomping of jaws and splattering of meats across the tablecloth. I take a note of the bustle through the steamy windows to the kitchen at the far end of the room, and I realize that this is it. One way or another, I have acted against my programming, and I am now, for better or for worse, going to have to deal with the consequences. Here we go. I glance down as the tablecloth stirs. The edge lifts up ever so slightly, and I see the girl peer out from below, watching me, waiting for the signal. My heart hammers. I clench my fist, and a voice bellows my name from across the restaurant floor. "John!" comes the roar. I turn to stare at its source, as indeed does everyone else. It's Grummy, anger right across his face, staring right at me. The silence falls. I stare at the chef in surprise. I don't know how to react. I don't know what's happening. I've had it, you hear me? I've had it with you, you bloody meatbag. Movement in the corner of my eye draws my attention. Helia strides from one of the adjoining corridors and out into the restaurant. Grummy, she says, astounded. What's going on? Grummy raises an accusatory finger at me from across the restaurant. All the eyes in the room turn to look at me, and then flicker right back as the chef resumes speaking. I have had it. I've had it with this incompetent waste of space. If I was given a penny for every time this meatbag screwed up, I'd be able to, well, retire tomorrow. I'm lost for words. What is he doing? What is he talking about? Helia glances at me. She puts out her hands, laughs awkwardly, and tries to calm the situation down. John is an unconventional employee, as we all will know, but he does his duties. You haven't seen the things that I've seen, Helia. The thing's a menace. I want him gone, and do you hear me? Gone. I'm sick and tired of having him in my kitchen. So it's time to decide. It's either him or me. Realization strikes like a bolt of lightning. Don't you see, John? Don't you see what he's doing? He's playing an act. He's giving you your out. He's going to bring an end to your contract. He's setting you free. I stand there gaping, unsure how to respond. A patron springs up from his seat. It's the Scorpion Man, the one with the fangs and the fly-like eyes. He points the two arms of his closest side right at me. This human saved my life, he bellows. I don't care what else he might have done. He's more than earned his place here. You can't fire him, you can't. The female that grabbed my wrist at table 20 rises in turn. He's incompetent. What else can you expect from a sack of flesh? Can their kind even read? Get him out. Chaos takes hold. More of the customers jump to their feet. Chairs are knocked to the floor as the clamor grows in volume. He's nothing but polite. I couldn't care about his bloody background. It brings down the tone of the restaurant having him here. It's a disgrace. He should be sacked. How am I supposed to focus on my meal when I can see him strutting around, wafting his scent right next to me? It's maddening. Now. The moment is now. Grummy roars again, shouting and gesticulating and drawing much of the attention of the room as he does so. And I look down at the erased edge of the tablecloth before me. I look at the girl. I look into her eyes. Go, I murmur, and she does. Like a hare, she bursts from the tablecloth and rockets across the room. The red of the apron that covers her is close to the red of the carpet, and amongst the havoc, she is not obvious at all. I watch her go with unblinking eyes and jaws clenched tight. I watch her push through the entrance doors, and then through the doors beyond, and out and away into the night. And then she's gone. The girl has escaped, and I breathe. But I'm not the only one who saw her go. My eyes meet Grummy's. His face passes through a quick and passionate cycle of emotions. Confusion, surprise, indignation, anger, and then bitter amusement perhaps, maybe even a little guilt. He clenches his jaw. He narrows his eyes. All right, I think that's quite enough, shouts Helia, her chins wobbling. Hush returns to the restaurant. The patrons settle awkwardly back into their seats, and she turns to me. My eyes leave Grummy's and meet with hers. John, tell me, how long have you been with us? About a year now, ma'am, I reply. She nods. We listen to the wind whistle beyond the walls. And you've served us well. From my perspective at least, as understood by the terms of our contract, I had been hoping that you would continue to work for us for a further few years, but she shoots a look over to Grummy. But I can't lose my head chef, I just can't. So, unless you would care to change your mind, Grummy. The customers look from me to Helia to Grummy. The tension hangs like a great weight in the air. Please, mate, I think to him. Come on, Grummy. Just let this one go, please. Let this one go. And Grummy frowns, and then he sighs, and rubs a hand over his head. I just want him gone, Helia. Get him out of here. I let out a breath. In that case, John, says Helia bitterly, your contract is hereby terminated. Thank you for your service. The sign on the door and its copies across the walls of the restaurant collapse at once. They fall from their pins as if knocked by a great force, and shatter against the carpet, dissolving instantly into nothing more than piles of dust. I watch as the pupils of every single creature in that restaurant dilate at once. I edge towards the door, taking off my apron as I do so, and hanging it over a nearby chair. I understand. I reply in a shaky voice. I look to Grummy. I understand. Still facing the room, I back up and out of the door. Goodbye, I murmur, as the nearest patrons hungrily lick their lips. Saliva bubbles at the edges of their mouth as their lips peel back to reveal the rows of gray-green, blood-stained teeth behind. I push out into the cold of the winter's night, and I run. I run away, and I don't look back. Thus concluded my time as the only human employee of a restaurant for cannibals. And yes, before you say so, I know that they aren't technically cannibals as such. Or do I? Because the creatures I served in that terrible place all had their own unique set of monstrous features. They all share the bulging eyes and the salivating jaws, and the semi-scaled skin. But they also shared a myriad of strikingly human qualities, and not just physical ones either. I haven't written off the possibility that they were humans once, or something like them, long ago perhaps. It's food for thought, if you'll pardon the pun. I saw the girl again shortly after my final shift. She was happy to see me. Her name's Erin, by the way. I roughly corroborated the story she gave to her parents and to the police, though I dressed the creatures up as people smugglers, rather than flesh-eating monsters. The place was raided within the day, but there was nothing there, just an empty and run-down old building in ruin. Had the restaurant always looked like that to the untrained eye? Was I simply unable to see it for what it truly was, now that my contract had expired? Or had the restaurant moved on, to somewhere else in another city perhaps? I do not know. I may never know. But as I stand here now on the edge of the street, coat drawn about my shoulders and empty can of petrol by my feet, I think perhaps that I do not care. As the sun rises on a new morning, I watch the building go up in flames. I watch the fire dance in the windows. I watch the roof collapse in on itself with a burst of thick black smoke. I am free now, yes, but the knowledge of this place of nightmares will haunt me for the rest of my life. I do not know where they acquire the humans for their fees. I had assumed that they had a farm of sorts, at some hidden location maybe. The girl's swift return to her family in the city, however, threw some doubt over that theory. I wonder why Grummy chose to allow me to leave, why he chose to stay silent when he saw the girl escape. I'm thankful for his decision, and don't get me wrong, but it troubles me that I am no longer able to consider the creatures I interacted with as simply monsters in black and white. They were monsters, of course, and yet, I shake my head. I was around them for far too long indeed. I picked up the empty can of petrol and walk on into the bright and sparkling dawn of the day. There's work to be done. I need to find myself a new job, after all.